I hope that I'm not sounding crazy and I hope I'm not the only one seeing this thing, but is it just me or are we actually living in Star Wars The Clone Wars right now?
Oh, wait, you serious? Let me laugh even harder.
I mean, think about it, right? We sit here and we fight with one another endlessly.
I identify as a threat. My pronouns are try me.
Even the smallest things that used to bring us together are used nowadays to further polarize us and keep us further and further and further apart from each other, eliminating any hopes of conversation, any hopes of reconciliation, or any hopes of seeing eye to eye.
I'm a bit sad. Actually, I'm lying. I'm quite devastated.
A lot of people are going to sit here and say, well, it's Republicans versus Democrat, it's left versus right, and all this nonsense. And I'm like, no, not really, and not even a little bit.
All right, explain this to me like I'm a 2-year-old, okay? Because there's an element to this thing I just cannot get through my thick head.
Because here's my thoughts on this, and this is why I came to this conclusion, and this is why I'm making this video. Think about Star Wars The Clone Wars. Now, you don't need to be a Star Wars nerd or anything like that to understand this, but I'm going to break down this concept in a very easy and simple way to understand. Star Wars The Clone Wars was all about clones versus droids, for the most part. The clones were the army commanded by the Jedi, and then the droid were the armies commanded by the Sith. And they would consistently and endlessly be pitted against one another in deadly combat and all these different, scenarios and situations that they were both fighting for slash believing in.
Wherever you're going, get there faster.
In Star Wars, clones are just soldiers that were created from the DNA of one bounty hunter, Jango Fett. And droids are just your typical robots, programmed to do and execute whatever they're being told to do. As opposed to droids, clones had a little bit more personality, and if you've ever watched the 2008 show, you would actually fall in love with some of them because they, are living different lives, but ultimately they were created for the same purpose, which is to serve the Jedi.
Wherever you're going, get there faster.
Now take that logic and concept and apply it to modern day politics.
Uh-oh, I don't like the sound of that.
You have clones on one side and droids on another. I will let you decide which side is which. That is not for me to say. I have my own opinions on it, but here's my point. What ended up happening at the end of the Clone Wars? Mass casualties on both sides, endless fighting, endless wars, but what happened in the end? Did any of that matter?
No.
The clones were fighting for this ideology and whatever that they were being fed, and then the droids were just executing on whatever vision the Sith had for them. But in the end, which side truly won? And I think Star Wars The Clone Wars is best summarized by this scene right here.
Victory is ours.
No, it's not! I never really thought about it. I never asked. I know the Jedi were wiped out. The clones were decommissioned, and the droid army was just shut down. The Clone War ended, but why? If none of you won, who did?
He's out of line, but he's right.
In the end, neither side won. They both realized that they were just pawns in a much grander scheme.
Wherever you're going, get there faster.
In Star Wars, you had both sides, being part of the same Senate, the Galactic Senate.
I lied.
Where you had, the Republic on one side talking to the Separatists, and then it was, all under the Chancellor and blah, blah, blah. They were communicating. They were all, quote unquote united, but they were fighting for different ideals. And then one day, obviously,
the time has come. Execute Order 66.
Chancellor Palpatine felt the need to no longer hide, and he created the Galactic Empire. And just like that, from one day to the next, all this fighting, all this nonsense, it was all over. Because eventually, people realized that the mastermind behind all of this was controlling both sides, and none of it truly mattered. There were no longer left versus right. It was one empire, period, point blank. Now take this concept and again, apply it to modern day politics. I don't care in which country. People sit here and talk about conservatives versus liberals, left versus right, Republicans versus Democrats. But the reality is that there are forces and masterminds behind the scenes controlling both sides, pushing both sides to fight against each other because they realize that, hey, if we actually sat down and talk to one another, we could actually see eye to eye on a few things, if not a lot of things, and that our differences, it's okay to have them, but it doesn't mean that it needs to lead to mass division the way that we're currently experiencing. Like, think about this for a second, right? We get this massive release from the Epstein files and everything going on there, and we see just how messed up the world is. It's not a left or right issue because both sides were clearly exposed as being co-conspirators in this whole thing. And instead of joining together and fighting against this massive evil and this nonsense happening and just protecting children, what are we being fed?
We are not alone. The Pentagon released the UFO files a few weeks back, and we just found out over 1 billion people have visited the site. 1 billion. UFO experts and top researchers have been investigating aliens for years. Their sources say dozens of crashed UFOs have been recovered, and what they found inside? Shocking. 4 different species of aliens.
And reports from The Economist and publications like ours and others showing that Russia's spring offensive has essentially stalled. Ukraine, for the first time in months, is actually clawing back more territory and inflicting up to 35,000 Russian casualties a month. From your vantage point, is this just a temporary lull?
Tonight, the Department of Justice releasing their final batch of files connected to the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
Today, we are producing more than 3 million pages, including more than 2,000 videos and 180,000 images.
If you want to spend the time or the remainder of your life pretty much looking through it, go ahead and do that. But yeah, now we have quote unquote transparency from both sides, et cetera, et cetera. Like, there's no accountability, no action that's been taken as a result of this. You're going to get the atypical, oh, we're investigating, oh, we're bringing charges and blah, blah, blah. I mean, Prince Charles got arrested and then released, I think like 11 hours later. So what consequence did he really face? Nothing.
Are you kidding me?
And that's what's really sickening. I think people need to start waking up and realizing what's actually happening here. Because it's not a left versus right, it's not a conservative versus liberal, it's not a labor versus reform or whatever. It's literally good versus evil. And these are relative terms depending on who you're talking to. But at the end of the day, again, what can we all agree on collectively? Everybody in the Epstein files should be prosecuted or at least brought to justice in some way, shape, or form. But we can't even do that because we're being distracted, we're being pushed in all different directions, we're being pushed on to the next scandal before we can even process the current one. And that's just how these things work. The people behind all of this, they're just like, we're gonna give them what they want, and then they're gonna not do anything because they can't, and we're gonna feed them the next controversy, and there you go. And I hate that. I really, really do. I hope that this video truly helps wake the masses up and makes people realize that, yeah, if we are not careful, we will end up waking up one day and living under a galactic empire, so to speak. Now, if you're a Christian and you've read through Revelation, you kind of know that this is the path that the earth is going down. It doesn't really matter, what we do. Now, if you're not a Christian or a believer, to make a long story short, this has been prophesied and revealed in the Bible that the Antichrist will come one day and, pretend to be this righteous savior, and everyone's going to quote unquote rally behind him. And ultimately, the earth is going to suffer. There's just going to be lots of miseries, and it's just going to be hell on earth pretty much.
You made me spill my lemonade.
And when you think about it, we're somewhat living through that right now. All these leaders are trying to pretend to be these self-righteous, like, oh, if you vote for me, I will solve all your problems. But the reality and the truth of the matter is none of them are. They're all in there for their own self-interest and not ours.
Oh my God, what is that? Huh?
But wait! There's more!
Hello there.
But I cannot see, I'm legally blind.
This, be nice. I'm finding it. It take you that long to find it?
It does.
And this is something I will talk about in my next video for sure. But if you did enjoy this one, please do leave a like, share, comment, subscribe, the whole 9 yards. I would greatly appreciate it. Let me know your thoughts on what I shared and be on the lookout for my next video because it's going to be a good one. But until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and God bless.